generally leisure, for leisure, if we visited Yorkshire and places?
Do you know, not that much. My husband and I enjoy walking, but we normally walk in Wales rather than. So, but we've been spotting nice places around. Yes.
Dovedale's really nice. Rose likes it there, don't you, Rose? Dovedale, stepping stones.
Yeah.
I did, and I went right.
Potentially be a town crier, actually. She's older.
Is she your first?
She is, yeah. Yeah.
She's having a good look, isn't she?
She is, yes. Yes.
Been anywhere for, you say 13 weeks?
Yes.
I work in teacher training, and I was a teacher before that. I actually decided that I was going to stop teaching to have a family. I don't know, I literally sit here admiring you with your teaching, and I've got children, because I don't know who would fit in anything.
I don't know. People say to me all the time, because a lot of my friends have part-time because it's so busy and do a lot of work at home.
Prime Minister, may I ask you about President Trump's decision to pull out of the Paris climate change agreement? You did not join France, Italy and Germany in signing a letter condemning President Trump. Why not? Jeremy Corbyn has described that decision by you as a dereliction of duty.
I've made the UK's position on the Paris Agreement very clear. We remain committed to the Paris Agreement. It's an important international agreement on climate change. I made the UK's position clear to President Trump last week at the G7 meeting, as did the other G7 leaders, and I made the UK's position clear to President Trump last night. Canada and Japan have not signed that letter, neither has the UK, but we all have the same view, that we remain committed to the Paris Agreement.
So what did you say to President Trump last night? And doesn't it show that you didn't sign this letter, your subservience to President Trump, as Jeremy Corbyn says?
No, the UK's position on the Paris Agreement remains as it always has been. We believe this is an important international agreement on climate change. The UK is one of the leading nations across the world in dealing with climate change. I made clear to President Trump, as did other G7 leaders last week, that we believed that the importance of the Paris Agreement, and we wanted the United States to remain within it. I spoke to President Trump again last night. I made it clear that the UK would have wanted the United States to stay within the Paris Agreement and that we continue to support the Paris Agreement. Like Canada and Japan, we've made our very clear views known to President Trump and others.
But doesn't a letter like this, such a public declaration by people who lead countries, show strongly what you really feel about President Trump? Doesn't it look rather weak not to join big countries like France, Italy, Germany in standing up to him in such a public way?
Well, I'm making a public declaration to the BBC now about the UK's position and the fact that we wanted the United States to stay within the Paris Agreement. They have taken a different decision. We continue to commit to the Paris Agreement. We think it's an important global agreement on dealing with climate change. The UK is one of the countries at the forefront of dealing with climate change, and we remain committed to the Paris Agreement.
Can I ask you just a quick question? Craig McKinley, of course, has been charged by the CPS over his election expenses from 2015. What's your response?
Well, the Conservative Party continues to believe that these allegations are unfounded. Craig McKinley is innocent until proven guilty, and he remains our candidate.
One final one, if I may. Some confusion around whether or not the plan to bring immigration down to the tens of thousands is a target or not that you'll meet by the end of the next Parliament, so 2022. Is that your target, and how are you going to do it? Voters, you haven't told voters how you plan to bring the immigration down to that sort of level.
Look, there are two parties at this election who are going to be potentially in government. There's the Conservative Party, which is committed to bringing net migration down, because we know the impact that immigration, when it's uncontrolled, can have on people, particularly people at the lower end of the income scale, and the Labour Party that does not believe in controlling immigration. We are committed to bringing net migration down to sustainable levels. That is the tens of thousands. That will take time. We haven't set a timetable out in our manifesto. Of course, we want to do it as soon as we can, but we have to keep working at this.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you.